why the last 10% of your development is really the last 90% coming out. What's going on, guys? My name is Tim Ruswick, and today we're going to talk about something that is prevalent in development and any kind of building or working on art or developing any sort of thing in this space. And that's the fact that like the last 10% of your project takes 90% of the time. So you wonder why people don't finish a game, right? Like, why is it almost a meme in the indie game developer space of not finishing a game? Well, it's because the last 10% has so many things that you're not even aware of, that you have to fix, that you have to polish, that you have to add. I first noticed this when I went to finish my first game. I had spent 10 years at that point working on all sorts of projects, games especially, and for whatever reason, I just couldn't finish a freaking game. Like, I would just lose interest. I would just get to the point where the game was like far long enough, and I got to like the dark work, which I call it, which is basically the work that you do that you don't really see any visual reference for it, like when you build for a long time and you don't see any improvement in the game, like when you're building an engine or something. And when I would get to the dark work, I would just quit. Like, nope, fuck that. I got a game, it's all good, I'm not gonna release it, it's whatever. And I would move on to the next thing. And that really damaged my, like, I wouldn't say self-esteem. Well, I had low self-esteem for a long time, but I wouldn't say that. It damaged my belief in myself that I was a finisher. And every time I didn't finish, that was more proof to myself that I don't finish things. So why would I finish things if I'm not a finisher? And it was a limiting belief that I think grew and grew and grew over time. And man, like, it really seeped deep into my head. I really had to work to get that out of there. And I think it's really important when you end up in a cycle like that to understand that, no, this isn't like a psychological issue, this isn't a mental problem or whatever, this isn't your issue. This is just the fact that literally that last 10%, that last piece is the biggest piece of the entire game. There's so much to do in that last little piece. And I remember, like, when we were finishing the game, like, there were so many things in that first game that I had no clue were coming. Like, I had worked in sound and stuff before, but I had never like finalized all the sounds for all the things and said, okay, that's what we're going with. I had worked with artists before and built like art into the game, but I had never like realized, okay, this is all the art for the entire game. I had never built out a full set of menu UI systems with the settings and a mute music, mute sound. All that took a lot of time. Like the individual menu options on how to do this and this and this for this specific thing. A credits scene, that took a ton of time too. And then when I got to actually publishing, like, because I was working in HTML5 at the time, I had to learn Intel XDK. I had to learn the intricacies of how to do that, all these random ass things I had no idea about, like the ID. You need like 5 different sizes of icons. You need like 5 different sizes of splash screens. All of that stuff took a ton of time. When I finally built the app, now you got to go to the App Store. Now you got to figure out all these fields. There's like 5 different pages of fields that you got to fill out. You got to do all the promo images. You got to do the description. You got to do, like, this was 10% of the game. Like, I just figured, oh, the basic game's done. We could just get that other stuff done in like 2 hours. But that little piece, that little sliver, that 10% turned into 90% of the project. It was massive. And that's not even including stuff like polish or, you know, tons of playtesting or let alone if you got like an economy in your game or something, you got to balance that out. Like, there's so many little pieces that you just don't think about, especially when you're a solo dev. You just don't think about this stuff, and it's like you get the basic game done and you're like, oh, I'm done. But when you got to get that last 10% towards publishing, so much stuff. So what I've learned is to expect that and to really like understand that what's ahead of me after I finish the basics of the game, to not get discouraged when I go through that giant slog of finishing things. Like, the best example of this is to just try a game jam, right? Like, you can get a game done in a weekend, no problem. But taking that game to publishing is like bigger than the game jam itself. It takes more time than actually the entire game jam does. And you just got to expect that. You got to understand that it's a slog. It's a slow, long process. You got to work through it. You got to do it, because if you quit there, that's like the worst place to quit, man. If you're going to quit at the idea stage, you know, don't spend a lot of time on it. Don't quit when you're right there, you're at the 90% mark. Even if it's 90% of the work to finish up, like, just carry through, because the world needs more awesome indie games. And I just wanted to encourage you guys, if you're at that point, if you really feel like you had the game done for a while, but it's just all these little pieces are adding up and you just keep tweaking things and messing with things and all that, just know that you should carry through. Like, even if you don't think so, even if you don't feel like it, you should watch my video on go with good enough too, so you don't over obsess on some things, because you always want to make sure that you're not spending way too much time perfecting and trying to aim towards perfection. But if you're in that stage, just know that we all go through it. It's normal, and you shouldn't stress out about all these things, because all of us developers go through it, and not just in game development either. I've built several startup companies from scratch by myself, and every time I build something, an online web application or something, same thing. Like, the last 10% is just that bitch of a, like, hard piece to get through, and it's all that stuff. So that's just my words of encouragement for today. I hope it helped you out. If you have any comments, please leave them below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Once again, I'm Tim Ruswick. I'll see you in the next video.